Okay, it's 7:30, so we're going to go ahead and call the committee of the whole meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February 27th. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Otto?
Here.
Etak?
Here.
Stark?
Here.
Chanzit? Wolf?
Here.
Salvati?
Here.
Brown?
Here.
O'Brien?
Here.
Callahan?
Here.
Meitzler?
Here.
Malay?
Here.
Ewer?
Here.
Saron?
Here.
And McFadden?
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Next item is item 2, which is approval of the minutes for January 30th and February 6th, 2018. Anybody have any comments or questions on those? If not, could I get a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion by, I didn't see who did it, Metzler, and second by Salvati. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 3 is items removed, added, or changed. I don't know of any. Do we have anything? Okay. Item 4, matters from the public for items that are not on the agenda. Okay. Item 5, consent agenda. We have one item, which is Resolution 18-28-R, approval of the 2018 zoning map, memo from Scott Buning, Community Development. Anybody have any questions on that? Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Malay, second by Stark. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Item 6, Resolution 18-08-R, authorization to purchase a combination sewer truck from EJ Equipment for $310,041 even. Memo from Scott Haynes and Jeremy Barkai. City Services, Alderman Wolf.
Thank you. Since Gary's up there, if the microphone cooperates, I guess we'll just start. You want to start?
Sure.
Thanks.
Those of you who kind of walking around Public Works with me and I take you on a tour, I always point out the vac truck and tell you that that's probably the most heavily used vehicle that we have. It's also one of our most expensive vehicles. Scott did a great job of summarizing what the vehicle is used for in his memo. Both he and Jeremy spent the last year demonstrating and looking at 3 different major manufacturers. They are recommending that we go forward with Vacon, the same manufacturer of our current 2006 unit, and purchasing through the National Joint Powers Alliance, which we've done with various other pieces of equipment now. So they are recommending, basically, there's a trade allowance, and we'll do that for public surplus. I think you guys are aware of the procedure now. Vendor gives us a trade allowance. We wait for the vehicle to almost come in, and then we'll put it on public surplus. If we can get more on public surplus, we'll sell it that way. If not, we trade it in. That way we maximize what we get for the old vehicle. And so they're recommending to waive formal bidding and then award for an amount of $310,041.
Anybody have any questions?
This was budgeted, correct?
Yeah, actually, it was budgeted even in last year's budget. We carried it over into 2018.
So like $175,000 each year?
175,000 each division, so water
Each
division.
division, okay.
So, yeah,
Water,
waters,
okay.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this seems like this one lasted longer than the last one we had. Seems like this is over 10 years old.
This is 2006, and I wasn't around for
Okay.
the last one, so I don't know.
Yeah, it seems like the other one was much older than that.
Well, this one started to experience some mechanical issues, and that's why it was in last year's, the 2017 budget. So really, probably we're pushing our luck with this one as it is.
You have any questions? I have a motion.
We need to do it, right? I
Right.
mean, it's getting to,
And, yeah, if you want to maintain your sewer system,
Right,
sanitary and
absolutely.
storm sewer system, so.
so
Anybody want to care to make
I'll
a
make a motion. We recommend to council passage of Resolution 18-08-R, authorizing purchase of a combination sewer truck from EJ Equipment for $310,041. I also would like to make a second motion to waive formal bidding.
Well, that will do at council. I'll
Okay.
recommend this to council. I have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion by O'Brien, second by Ewer. All in favor?
Aye.
That'll go on the regular agenda, as we have to waive formal bidding on that.
Okay, item 7, Resolution 18-18-R, authorizing purchase of water meters. Jeremy Barkai's memo, Public Utilities, Alderman O'Brien.
We're looking to purchase more water utilities. We're looking to purchase them again from Midwest Meter Company. That's who we've purchased them from in the past. It's going to be the same style meter I mean, like we're buying light poles today, it's the same style, so we just keep it simple. Gary, did I miss anything?
Nope, thank you. As you all know, we are in the middle of a multi-year meter replacement program, and as Alderman O'Brien just stated, we want to make sure that the meters are consistent, because when you put them in that way, they're all exactly the same. We're about 60% complete with the program. We've done about 1,000 meters last year, and we estimate that we've got about 4 to 4.5 years left in the program. So this is a multi-year project. If you recall, we're also doing electric at the same time. The meters are getting done. So we are recommending to waive formal bidding. We did go out and seek bids, and so it's waiving formal bidding and then authorizing the purchase through of Badger Meters through Midwest Meters for an amount not to exceed $200,000, and this is basically the yearly budgeted allotment.
Any questions, comments? Marty?
There seems to be a lot of debate about water rates. Sometimes a lot of people are saying, my rates have doubled, tripled, quadrupled this past month, and others are saying, no, I haven't seen any change in it. Do we know if there's any correlation between the newer, better reading, more accurate reading than the kind of estimating that was going on out there?
Well, we
Having more
weren't
complaints on.
We weren't really estimating anyone. So if someone had an old meter that was troublesome, they were addressed. We don't estimate bills short of an isolated case where somebody's meter fails, and then we estimate their monthly usage. But they wouldn't be going for months on end, like with an estimation of their bill.
Right.
The old mechanical meters, I mean, there's a reason why we're replacing them. Over time, they physically start to slow down, and so the newer meters, just like this changes with the technology, I'll say the new meters are more accurate. Could that then reflect into a change in someone's bill? It certainly could, depending on the volume of water usage that they have. But it basically just means that they were getting credit for free water before, and now they're not getting credit for free water. So we haven't adjusted the rate at all. The rate is still the same. If anything, we're improving the system's accountability to account for all the gallons going through someone's faucet.
Right, and we know what the rates have done and haven't done, and
Yeah.
Especially it wouldn't be seen within the last month or two.
No.
And then there hasn't been, because it usually gets a lot of people saying, well, do you have water leaks, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if we've been getting a lot of complaints that are trackable to the newer meters.
No.
Okay.
No, and we haven't seen anything like that, any chronic issue like that at all. And again, it's an accountability thing, so it's hard to someone make the argument, I used to be getting water for free, and now I'm having to pay for all my water.
Right.
That's kind of a hard argument to.
That's why I just want to throw it out there to
Yeah.
make sure that information gets dispelled.
Yeah.
So Gary, do we have any kind of monitoring system for finding leaks, if that's the case? If somebody, all of a sudden, they have a leak and they're
Right. So there's a high-low water report which comes out, and if you are a normal household and your consumption, obviously all of our consumptions go up and down, but in a certain month, all of a sudden it does this out of a certain percentage threshold, then we actually, if the homeowner hasn't contacted us, we then turn around and contact the homeowner and say, hey, your bill is X% higher this month. Would you like us to come out and take a look? Perhaps you have a leak. And we will be proactive with respect to that. Or sometimes the bills drop. To Marty's point, sometimes the bills drop, and all of a sudden there's like no usage for an entire month. Well, how can a household of 4 people be in there with no usage? Well, obviously they've got a meter problem. So
Right.
Yep. So we have a high
So
low.
red flags do surface.
We have a high-low account report to get those issues. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
I'm curious, how many meters about is 200,000?
We have 9,000, 10,000 total water meters, roughly in that range. I know we have 9,000 some odd electric meters, so it's roughly the same. That's what your question was?
Yeah, but for this,
Oh, 200,000? 200,000 is roughly,
or what does a meter cost?
yeah, 200,000 is roughly about 1,000 meters.
Okay,
$200,000 is roughly about 1,000 meters in
a couple
icon
$100 a
devices.
meter.
Roughly.
Anyone else? Anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Malay, second by Ewer. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Probably consent agenda, please.
No, that'll have to be waived for me.
Oh, yes, that is correct.
Yep. Thank you.
All right. Item 8, presentation on the branding project by Spire Incorporated. Alderman Atack, you going to start us out with it?
Okay, yeah, this report is the culmination of a lot of work, maybe a year-long process by our branding committee and Spark to come up with branding recommendations. And I think unless someone from the committee wants to say something, we can turn it, or Chris would like to say something, we'll turn it over to Spark. Would you like to?
Yeah, I'll just introduce a little bit.
Okay.
We obviously have been at this just a little over a year. And, when you think about this type of process, our objectives on the front end were to get as much input from the community as possible. And on that front, there is a branding committee, as you're aware, that was composed of representatives from the community and different organizations. Obviously, a process like this can be circuitous at times. And I think what the committee and everyone that's worked on this and had input can be proud of is that, Batavia is good at looking at a lot of different angles and thought before it takes action. And with all the considerations you've been making this year and all the different community agendas you've been facing and some of the tough projects, I'd like to invite you in a little different space tonight. Because, while there are, hard matters to deal with day to day, we always need to keep in mind those community values that drive us and inspire us a little bit. And our agency worked with the community to draw that out with more than 800 people who participated in a survey, follow-up interviews, one-on-one interviews, really trying to get down to the core of some of the subjects that came up. And they're going to talk about that. But I think it's important to put this in a context, too, that while we're thinking of our image, we need to take a look at how this will be both functional, practical, but also, sort of communicate some of those things that are really important in today's market. And a lot of that has to do with some of the instant visual appeal, but the underlying core of what it should also do is enable us to reach out and extend this brand imaging that we've done to work into areas of economic development. And how will it help us attract and bring new businesses here? And also marketing both to our internal audience, our stakeholders in the community, but also communicating our values, locally, regionally, even nationally. And so what we're excited to present to you tonight is the culmination of that work. And we've really worked collaboratively on this. We haven't been afraid to ask hard questions and even push back a bit. And I think that's important for you to know going into that, because the refinement that took place, I think really produced a great product. And I hope you enjoy tonight's presentation. I'll let Spark take over, but when we're all done, we'll open it up for questions. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you everybody for being here tonight. I'd also like to thank Laura and the rest of the selection as well as the steering committee. Chris, while not really stealing any of our thunder, pretty much summed it up really right. I mean, that's the introduction that I typically make if we don't have somebody as eloquent as Chris to put that all into great words, into perspective. And so I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight and for giving us this opportunity. I'd also like to thank, I wish there was a large audience where I could thank them, but we've thanked people all along the way, the city of Batavia. Oh, there you are. Dan, oh my God, they're here. Dan, you're in our presentation. So thank you. Really, there were for the one-on-one interviews and one on a few interviews, we were able to thank some of you who were part of that, and I want to thank we also all want to thank some of you who also, or most of you who sent out the request for survey. It's all made a big difference, and Chris put it right, that it truly is a collaborative effort. We all worked on this together. We have fine-tuned it. And I hope there's one word that I want to bring up and maybe sort of keep this in the back of your mind as we talk about this presentation, is aspiration or aspirational goals. So outside of all those marketing efforts and everything that we can look at and do together, just think about this aspirationally as well. It's a little bit harder to sort of grasp, but I think it could be a really good thing as we move forward. So I'd like to introduce the team first before we continue. We have Daniel Grove, Jackie Short, and Mary Ann Rude. And I am Richard Cassis. Thanks again for having us. I'd like to bring Jackie up, and she's going to talk to you about the qualitative, which is the online survey, and what the results were, what we've gleaned from that. Following that will be Mary Ann Rude, who will talk about the one-on-one interviews, things that we've learned, things that we've heard you've said. After that, we will show you the sort of coming together of the survey results in what is a brand architecture. And so Mary Ann will take us through that as well. And from that brand architecture and from all the surveying and from everything we've learned and from the steering committee input and from feedback from some council members, we'll begin to form what you'll see tonight, which is the visual brand identification. So, Jackie.
I'm very short. I am the geeky little data person, so I've been given all of 2 whole slides in the presentation. I will try to make as much of them as I can. It's a quantitative survey. We had 850 responses. To let you know what that means, in a typical survey, I'm looking for about 500 responses in a community. So getting 850 was a fantastic response. It means that you have a very engaged and excited constituent here. So that made me very, very happy. Research on positioning for Batavia uncovered a tremendous support for what we're calling a strong neighbors or a neighborhood feel brand. Now, those came out of some of the interviews that Mary Ann did, and then we tried to quantify that along with many, many other messages. I am not going to take you through all of the other messages because we'd be here until June 1st. But what you can see here is that looking at the messages as compelling, believable, and unique, and all 3 of those have to be there, Batavia is home to generous and caring citizens, active in the community with a strong spirit of volunteerism, and Batavia has a strong neighborhood feel, a place where neighbors know each other and help each other out. Those are 2 statements out of all the statements that we tested that really rose to the top, that people in Batavia really liked, that they found believable for Batavia, and they felt were unique to the community. M.A.?
Okay. So we also went through a process of talking one-on-one and, as Richard said, one on a few people. And we started out, we did one group in February where we talked to about 20 people and all kinds of community members. They were business owners and volunteers and faith leaders and elected and appointed officials. It was really a good mixture of people. We then went back in October and talked to council members. And we are now going to do a group exercise. City council members, all please raise your right hand. And then I want you to do this. And do this, okay? Because it was clear after talking to those 20 representatives of the community and then talking to city council members, you guys really represent your constituents because you were right on the money. You agreed with everything they said. You reinforced everything they said. So that was really a wonderful thing to see. So in all of those conversations, you can see how people look at the assets of this community. Obviously, the people who are generous and willing to pitch in, people really make it safe to live here. A lot of people talked about, they'd sort of hang their head and say, I don't lock the doors, really, but it's so the kids can come in after school. So people feel really safe here. There is unanimous praise for the schools. That is probably one of the biggest draws this community could have, and talk about something that's going to draw new people here. That's a wonderful asset. So is the arts community. And there were people who told me that really, Geneva and St. Charles would really like to be a lot like us. They're really riding our coattails. New businesses, established businesses, all feel well supported here by the Chamber of Commerce, by Main Street. They think that they really get everything they need here to be successful. And they also talk about the current city administration, which makes it easy for them to do business here. So from residents to business owners, faith community, they all see very big assets in this in Batavia. We also talked to them about their responses to some of the current identities being used for Batavia. The windmill was a literally right down the line 50-50 split, positive, negative. And you see there on the slide, and you can see how it balanced out. Some said it's important to our history versus it's not our future. So there were people who felt that it should be more forward-looking or aspirational. Interesting looking, it's really not, it's kind of silly. No one gets it. Sets us apart, or it's only cool if you like history. And neat if you're over 50, and if you're under 50, you just don't care. Reaction to the City of Energy, that was interesting too, because they had a real feel for what energy means today in Batavia. It means the people. It means the entrepreneurs who are really making this a very vibrant downtown. River Street and the farmers market. So those are the things that's how they captured the term energy. In terms of energy as in you plug into it, please don't remind me of what energy costs here. That was an issue that had some discussion. So the folks from Fermi said, that's really kind of an interesting tagline, but that's not what we do here. We do basic research. And some people simply said, I don't get what it means. So there were some positives, there were some negatives for both. This is what Richard was referring to. This is the brand architecture, and this is a tool that after we have done this research, after we have developed positioning and gotten responses, both quantitative and qualitative, we build for you as a tool as you go forward and as Chris and his team go forward to do all the communications or signage or wayfinder or whatever it is that expresses the personality and the brand of Batavia. So the brand vision is to be a welcoming community to all. Neighbors, newcomers, business owners, visitors, everybody is welcome here. And that's why the promise to external audiences is the welcome mat is always out here. And I will tell you, after I had been here one day doing interviews, and I went over to Limestone to pick up a sandwich, there were people who were waving to me as I crossed the street, and I had been here one day. So to say that the welcome mat is always out here is truly, it's a very true statement. The brand promise to internal audiences, this is a community where you can depend on your neighbors. And people told us that again and again and again. The positioning place, the point of differentiation, what makes Batavia different from communities that would be competing for business or new residents, is that Batavia is known for its strong neighborhood feel where neighbors know each other and help each other out. You'll see in some of our messaging that there are a lot of ways to support that as well. So the brand personality, what's it like if you're Batavia? If Batavia were a person, what would it be like? And that is generous, strong spirit of volunteerism here, very down to earth, generous, and friendly to all. So that gets us to the brand personality and then some of the messages that go with that. First message, what you see here are 5 different key messages that support that brand architecture and the brand personality and the positioning. And then for each one, we don't ever have a message that we don't have a proof point for. If you can't tell me why you can say this, then we can't use it as a key message. So the first one is a great family town with great schools, and the school district gets huge applause. The support for local teams. There were people who had to finish an interview quickly because they had to get to a game. I mean, that was it. very friendly business environment, and very family-friendly. With all the outdoor opportunities here to involve families are terrific. Everything from the river to the river walk, the pond, it's all creates a great environment for families. Nobody volunteers like Batavia. Batavia really is very proud of being able to do it yourself. People talked about when it was time to build the Riverwalk and they found out what it was going to cost. They said, we can do it ourselves, and everybody turned out and built it. Neighbors provide safety nets for those in need. There were some really compelling stories. A lot of people talked about how chip-in started for students, a little girl needed a pair of shoes to go to school. And 2 phone calls went out, and in 20 minutes, there was a pair of shoes on her front porch. That's the kind of thing that you see here in Batavia. Interfaith Pantry and the clothes closets also support that. New and growing businesses are welcomed here. The Chamber of Commerce provides mentoring and support, user-friendly City Hall, and of course the Main Street programs and events that keep building that energy and momentum around all the businesses for Batavia. And the arts and self-expression flourish here. Yes, they do. Water Street is a huge draw. Limestone and its art exhibits, and getting kids involved in that, and music and card making, and then the Fine Arts Festival and the Fine Arts Center. So all of those things go together to talk about all the things that come down to Batavia. What did I do?
Click OK. Just click OK. It'll go.
Okay.
No, just.
I cannot be trusted. Okay. And all of that is what brought us to our logo line, which is Batavia, powered by neighbors. So with that,
Is it not going?
Okay, there you go. I'm going to turn it over to Richard, who's going to talk about how this becomes a visual idea.
Great. Thanks, Marianne. So let's think about all those things. Let's think about what icons, symbols such as the windmill. Let's think about what energy means and what we've heard many folks in Batavia say energy means, which is the energy of the people, more than just the energy of the windmills that happened many years ago, and more than potentially the energy that we thought happened at Fermilab or happens, or just that notion of that. And let's look at the character of your town, and let's try to bring those things all together. And so you have Batavia, powered by neighbors. We have, without getting too much into it, there's a font that has really nice character to it, that is also simple, it's sturdy, it's inspirational. And now we have a symbol to go along with it. And what does that symbol mean? Well, let's look at, again, the icon of your windmills and the heritage. But then let's also look at the energy of your neighbors and the powering of the city by your neighbors. And what makes it up are the neighbors working together and coming together. So Batavia, powered by neighbors. Let's look at some of the things that inspired us too. I mean, there are sculptures and there are works of public art that are all over that have to do with cooperation, that have to do with collaboration, that have to do with elements all coming together in a circle to form a unity, a whole, a continuum, but that are also dynamic in and of themselves, so that each symbol or each piece of that whole is energized and is working on its own, but then it's working in harmony to complete some sort of goal, in this case, to complete the shape or the brand or the identity. Figuratively, you've got people in a group together, powered by neighbors. Let's expand on that. Let's make it a message so Batavians get it done again. Again, now we start to see the brand to come in at the bottom left. Powered by one of your neighbors, the Dance Academy. Shows off its vibrant character. Powered by history. Batavians challenge themselves to innovate. Powered by neighbors. Powered by heritage and the work that goes into keeping up that icon, that symbol. But how do you take that symbol and you make it something else? You make it something that's modern, something that works with everything else, that can be reproduced, that can be on signs, that can be on lapel pins, that can be on business cards, that can be in studios by powering it by Danny in the studio, right? I mean, if you see to the right of her, you'll see neighborhood art activist. So she's one of your neighbors. She's helping power Batavia. We know this man. He's our neighborhood chef, powered by Gaetano. Powered by Yogi Linda, pardon me. And then we have Melissa over at the Tea Tree. We also have some good eggs, right? Some people who do well, who do great things, tireless volunteers, people who make things happen in the parks, people who make things happen all around the river, our natural neighbor. We're powered by the Humpty Dumpty, the bookworm, the eggheads, people at the library, people that make things happen. You've got your bulldogs, we've got watchdogs, we've got powered by other neighbors. Who are our other neighbors? People who protect us. The police, the fire department. Powered by neighbors. Holiday card, tote bag, color changing mugs, anything. There's lots of different touch points that we can bring to light. We can even do a holiday gift card, shop, drop, repeat. Just ideas like that, that you begin to see how this symbol starts to look like something a little bit from the past, but then also brings it into the future. Holidays. Ambassadors can begin to wear lapel pins. We've had a lot of advocates so far. We've been able to really, really point people out that are ready to go and reeling and very excited about this brand. And we'd like them to show that off. That's one way to do it. Signage. Why not bring a little bit into the signage system? Bring that windmill to life. Bring those separate elements that combine and come together. For example, in the middle monument or gateway sign, where you've got a lot of different elements coming to create, again, that sort of power, that energy up at the top, a little bit of a beacon. To the bottom right, you've got, it's almost a deconstructed windmill of sorts. It's not up high. We've taken that tower and we've brought it down and we've sort of taken that lattice work and made it part of a very stable monument sign. Find Waldo, find your logo in there. A little bit of fine art. And also patterns. Could be textiles, could be anything. Could be part of a brochure, could be online, could be a nice little repeat pattern. Batavia, powered by neighbors. Thank you. Any questions or thoughts, ideas?
The men are staring at me. Only because I tend to always speak my mind.
No.
I was introduced to this tagline over 6 months ago, and I didn't like it then, and I still don't like it.
Okay.
I don't like the typeface. I think it's very casual. So I can't get behind this campaign. And those are my general overriding thoughts about it.
I can.
Your
I'm sorry.
Well, I like the circle. I like that visual. I like how you used it. I feel like Powered by Neighbors is not truly unique to Batavia. It's not distinguishing Batavia. I know that you say Batavia is all about volunteerism, but there are a lot of communities that are about volunteerism. So I don't see it as distinguishing as I'd like to see it. I think there are other things that may make Batavia more unique.
Okay.
Lucy, you going to run the meeting? I mean, this is yours.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'm thinking about, I apologize, Scott.
First, there's a lot that went into this, and I appreciate that.
Oh.
So, and I know, in deference to whenever I commit to something like this, I can't make a snap decision. I have to marinate. So, this is something that I have to sit on and think through. My initial on the logo type is it's a little casual, but that's these are things that you have to sit back and just let it soak in. You can't. Everyone's going to have a knee jerk. I love a lot of the environment that you did around it. There's some really good stuff in there. So, but again, it's creative. This is something I need to really let it flow through.
Right. Thank you.
Mike?
Richard, just, I don't know about the logo or anything. I have to, as Scott says, marinate that. But what I find missing is the big thing in our city is the river runs right through our city. And there's nothing bringing Batavia and the river together. And that's, I think, the city's largest selling point is the river. And we've always discussed, I mean, not always, but we have discussed that we need to employ the river to a larger degree to bring companies here, to bring people here.
Right. Good. Thanks.
Anyone else?
I'll weigh in.
Okay.
I kind of, throughout this whole process, wondered at the end of it, when I look at something from a marketing standpoint or think about how it's going to play out, usually to me it's, did I look at it and go, wow? Or did I look at it and go, wow? What kind of kick did I get from it? And I looked at this and I see, and again, I don't know if I use the marinate word or if I'd say, I want to just think about it. I see how this can be used in a lot of different ways. And one of the struggles that I've seen, different things that I've been involved in, different boards that I've been on, is when you try to brand something, sometimes you get stuck in one facet of the city, or stuck in one facet of the business, or stuck in one facet of the idea that you think you're trying to get across. And what I see here is something that can be used by an art studio, that can be used by a business in town, that can be used by the city, that can be used by a volunteer group, that can be used by a lot of things in the city. So that's where I look at this, and right off the bat I see there's a lot of possibilities for what this could be used for throughout the city. I think that, again, I think we all need to step back, look at it, kind of rethink what we think we're supposed to get out of this, and marinate. But I'm not going to cook after that.
That's so good.
And think about how 5 years from now, how is this going to be perceived? How is this going to be, reacted to by the person that moves into this town in 5 years and looks at a brochure and sees that logo or sees that tagline? And how do they, or how would you think they would react to that, in 5 years? Because this is a decision that's going to last more than the time that any of us are on the city council. I don't know in the past really how much thought was truly put into something like that type of question. When we came up with a windmill logo, it's just historical. And it wasn't, to me, putting a brand out there to try to sell anything from. I don't think anybody thought of that logo being a sales tool. I think, at least in my mind, what some of this was to come up with was to be able to provide a brand and an identity for the city to either attract business, increase business, attract people. So I think it has to be more than just a couple of words strung together or a visual that you catch your eye and you know right away that that's Batavia, or you know right away that it's a Chevy truck, or you know right away that that's a Ford. It has to be more than just that. And I agree with Mike that I think that the river is a very important part of our community, but it's not the only thing in this community. And I think that's the other thing. We can't be so narrowly focused on one thing that we forget all the rest of it. And that's why I think the powered by part of it is really good, because I think you can use that in so many different ways and for so many different things that it can work and it can be adapted and it can change, but still remain the same thing that so many people love about Batavia, is what, in their mind, in their eyes, is what works here, or what drew them here, or what keeps them here. That's it.
Dave?
Thank you.
I know, Mary Ann, you know how I feel about this whole exercise, but as you know, I said I'd be willing to listen and learn and go from there, keep open-minded on it. I'm not going to say that I don't like what you came up with. I'm not going to admit that I like what you came up with. Because I'm not sold on it. I need to marinate on it also.
I love it.
And I'm very confused on the powered by, to be honest with you. To me, I think you look at that and you say powered by neighbors, and the first thing I can think of is the Neighbors magazine. Are people going to say, well, does this have something to do with the Neighbors magazine, or what does this whole powered by thing mean? I agree with Mike. I think something needs to. I'd always thought if we did anything, there would be something to do in there about the river. I don't know. It's so similar to what the Park District has done that I wonder if it isn't too similar. That we're not creating our own identity, but then again, should we create our own identity? I don't know. Should it be, should the Park District and the city have something very, very same? Or should they be completely different? This is pretty darn close, but not the same. I don't know. I'd have to think about it. I'm going to keep my open mind still open.
Nick?
Thank you.
I don't know, have a unique perspective. I've been marinating for, I'm going to plug it with garlic, I guess. I came in with very, it's like when you go see a movie, if you go in with low expectations, you're usually pleasantly surprised. I'm pleasantly surprised, but I came in with low expectations because there are too many things for us to try to cover. There are too many pieces of our puzzle. There's too many inputs. There's too many aldermen. There's too many, it's to design something by committee is a tough task, and I think you guys did a great job. What I like about it is I take a different view of branding. I think brands change over time, so I'm not looking at this as a 100-year decision that we're stuck with this. I mean, there's an evolution and styles change and whatnot. I think this is current. I think it's appealing. Does it incorporate everything? No. What I really like about it is the campaign possibilities. What you did with the powered by, the restaurateurs, or what Alan was saying, the different things you can do with it from a marketing campaign, I think is endless, and I like that aspect of it. But I came in with low expectations because I knew there's no way you can get everything of Batavia in this. I don't think it's possible. So I think what you've come up with is good.
Thank you. Thanks.
Marty?
I think you did capture what's in Batavia. I do think that is, because that's what the responses that you were getting. And my takeaway on it is not throwing away all of our history, but it is modernizing it and reinterpreting it for today. Mm-hmm. So I think I didn't know what to expect, because we all know what is already here. And to your point about the Park District being so similar, it should be, because it should be the same town. We shouldn't be competing with different identities. We should be cohesive and making sure that we're meshing well together. My previous employer is a Fortune 50 company, State Farm. They went from the life auto fire, 3 circles with a lot of busy work and so on and so forth. They changed it and rebranding, new stuff, and it was just 3 circles, 3 red circles with white on the outside, and everybody was like, what is that? That's all we're getting? Yet that's all you see, because this is something that you want to see. It pays homage to our historical past and not throwing it away, because throwing away our historical past isn't our city either. If we just got rid of all of that, we'd be kind of lying to ourselves about what this community is, because it's not that. But making sure that it is a new representation of it that is authentic, that is sellable, that is believable, is that design, because it still says that's Batavia without having to rethink it, but it looks different. And to Nick's point about the campaigns that go along with it, it builds the excitement that we would have instead of City of Energy or this or that, all these other things that are all competing. We need to, with a brand, slim it down, make it easy, and quickly identifiable, because everything is competing for that. And if you don't have to tell these large, drawn-out stories about, well, this was a windmill factory back in the 1800s, they're gone. That's the underfit, they're gone. So, but you don't throw away that either, because that would tick off half the population that wants the historical part. So you've got to find that blending of what it is, which goes back to why neighborhoods work, because that is what we do. We all blend together. We do reach out, welcome new, welcome old, and bring it all together. So I like it.
Elliot?
Thank you.
I admit my initial reaction was mixed. But that's also because I'm not a marketing person. And a lot of this stuff is very subjective. It either resonates in all its various artistic manner, or it doesn't. I do like it, or at least I'll say that even in just this short amount of time of seeing it and thinking about it for the last 20 minutes or so, the logo is growing on me, because I can see the possibilities to extend that. I recognize and I agree that my initial reaction was, yeah, where's the river? But then how much do you put into a logo before it just becomes too cluttered? It's very easy to let that get taken away. And where my reaction was to say, where's the river? Then I think, well, how many other communities can claim the river? Quite a few. How many other communities can claim the windmill? Okay, so with this logo, though, one thing that struck with me is how it was extended to a lapel pin, and it would kind of look like I'll just say a flower, right? Well, then I start to stare at it a little bit more and think, well, is that easily extendable to bicycle wheels? Or just energy, a turbine, something that's conducting, I'm not going to say the but I mean, the idea is that the logo is transformative, it's transferable, but so is the slogan. My own lack of artistic ability, if you will, the font doesn't sell me. I don't know what it is, it's not resonating with me, but I do like the tagline, the powered by, and how extendable that is.
Okay. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, I probably don't have a ton much more to say. The interesting thing is the word energy kind of got mocked, it feels, in the surveys you guys did, and we're kind of sticking to it. Maybe we shouldn't care, but I can see that moving forward. You started to go down that path about power, and it's a slippery slope for Batavia, unfortunately. I mean, I like the idea of what we're saying there, because I'm trying not to think about energy, and I'm trying to think about everything else it does. I would agree on the font that maybe when I first looked at it, it just felt, maybe we are trying to attract a younger crowd. I don't know, it just felt very childish, probably isn't the right word, but I don't have a better synonym right now.
Thank you.
Mike?
Yeah, I didn't come in with high expectations either, and I was surprised by everything. I think that this is a logo and a tagline that all branches of government can get behind, and businesses as well. I think that is something that businesses could get behind, and that would go on their brochures. Different branches of government would also, everybody would be on the same page. And I think that that's what Batavia really needs.
Susan?
I think one of the things that bothers me about this project is I'm used to having a choice. I'm not very good with, this is it, this is your only choice, take it or leave it. And so that's how I'm feeling about this right now. And I don't like that. And so then you get that whole by committee type thing, because everybody's like, now it's like, well, yeah, but I don't like this, and how about that, and what about if it was a different color? Maybe I'd like it better red. And so I think that that's kind of what this project, especially since I heard the tagline 6 months ago, and it's taken me another 6 months to get to this point. And then, so for 6 months I've gone, Batavia powered by neighbors. Yeah, not loving it. So the logo, I think the logo is interesting. I think it has a lot of neat design elements. And so I'm sitting here trying to think what doesn't appeal to me. Yellow is my least favorite color. And so maybe that's part of it. You know, maybe it's a color thing. But the typeface really bothers me. The powered by sounds great because it does have a lot of applications. By neighbors, and again, it depends who you talk to. Because I don't have the same experience as maybe Marty Callahan does with his neighbors. So I go, my neighbors? No. So that's where.
Some of that. I mean,
So there's a little bit of that where I'm like, really?
I love my neighbors.
No, I'm not.
So that's, I mean, I look at it and go,
I have good.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It is not.
I mean, and it's so, and I guess that's where it's like, it's so like Mary Poppins-ish. It's like, powered by neighbors. Aren't we lovely here in Batavia? And it's so like, ooh. And does it stand the test of time? Because while Mike O'Brien regularly talks about it, and so does Dave Brown, and we're talking about buildings that want to stand the test of time, what will I look at this logo in 10 years, 15 years and go, oh, that was designed in 2018? Just like architecture styles, and you go, oh, that's, yeah. So in my mind, this doesn't stand the test of time. Not so much the logo, because the logo is, I like the design element of the logo, but the rest of it is the font and the tagline just really like grates on me just a lot.
I'm going to go to Drew first. Drew?
All right, couple of thoughts. As others have said, this has a lot of legs for extension possibilities to various other entities around the place. I like that a lot. I think that's important. It feels like, to me, if I'm trying to put myself in the position of just somebody who lives here, who's lived here for a long time, and this would sort of feel to me like an evolution rather than a radical departure from where we were. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important for, the city with the history we have. You evolve bit by bit and kind of comes along. So like Susan's saying, is this going to stand the test of time? I don't know. For 15 years, you might look at it and go, that's terrible. And you set about taking a look at it and evolving it to something more current with the times. Like Marty was talking about with State Farm doing, brands do it all the time. It's a never-ending process. The other thing I like about the architecture in general, one of the big pitfalls you can get into with a brand is to set up a brand promise that you can't deliver on. And I feel like this sets up a brand promise that anybody that came to town would feel like their expectations were met for what to expect based on what they were seeing, what they were being, what was being presented to them. So I think that's hugely important. And then last note, just a random anecdote, but I'm going through a logo design with a new business unit at work right now. And it's a hilarious process. It started out, we sat down with the designer and we worked up a bunch of different concepts. There was probably 25 of them, weaned them down to a dozen, and sent those out to the stakeholders along with one that we was kind of a favorite, and we put it in some place, and they kind of liked it and wanted some tweaks, and said, well, it's fallen a little flat for us. Okay, here we go. I'll send you out, here's a dozen. See which one you like, or two you like, and send some reaction back to that. So I got the feedback back. Nah, we don't like any of them. My wife's an artist, she's gonna do it. And I'm like, no, not, because I have to market this, and I'm going to make the call, and we're going to go with it. But the point being with the story, you will never get group consensus on a logo, a tagline, anything like that with a group this size. You get close, but...
There's a term that describes that aspect of brand identity, and it's a difficult thing to overcome, but it's called provincialism. And that sort of looking after our own domain without looking at the broader context is a challenge. And one of the things that it feels like was going on during this whole process was to begin to look at Batavia as an external force in this world as well as the internal force. And that sort of breaks that model of a provincial look at ourselves. And I think your experience that you're sharing here about the difficulty of encompassing everything. And I guess having been a resident here for 20 years in Batavia, and actually 40 years overall, and watching what's going on in the development of the town, when it comes to the river's impact, I think we're not there yet. I think that there's still some things that are going to happen along that river territory that will bring that to the fore at some point in time. Where a city like San Antonio has the Riverwalk, and all of a sudden it becomes part of your identity. Right now, one of the clear messages that kind of came and keeps bubbling up in here is the people. And that aspect of, depicting people in this logo was sort of a strong appeal there. And I know from the standpoint of some of the things that are happening collaboratively in town that there is an embracing and a modernizing or a redefining of our narrative about what our history means. And one of the things we discovered in talking with the Historical Museum and all that sort of thing is that we really haven't claimed that even properly. Much as we've celebrated it, there are still some aspects of that history that really speak to the progress of how Batavia's done business. We're an idea maker, an originator, and really sort of powered the settlement of much of the West with these windmills that we built. So modernizing things like that through sort of a progressive, as you talked about, Drew, sort of the evolution, as that is kind of what's going on here. And so I guess I invite you guys to consider that, not thinking of it as a 15-year project or something that Batavia is fixed with, because frankly, that's not what's happening in the modern context with logos. So it's more about what can we do to sort of propagate our image with the people we most want to reach. And that, I guess that would be my commentary, my feedback, hearing what everybody says. So. Thanks.
Thank you. Dave?
Thanks. I just have a couple more comments. One is, this is a comment, I'm not saying that we should incorporate this with the logo or not, but a couple comments have been made about energy and, well, we shouldn't talk about that. And I absolutely disagree with that. Yes, we can't debate the fact that, we can't rebut the fact that we're in a situation now with our cost of electricity. But someday, hopefully, and everybody in this room is committed to it, we're going to get out of that situation. And someday we'll cross that line where we will. In the meantime, we've got a very, very reliable energy source in this town, and that's our electric department. So if anything, I don't think we should shy away from talking about energy. I think we should promote it. That's my comment on that. The other thing is, the one thing that we're missing here, and I'm not so sure we should throw it out with the bathwater. To our east, we've got a great neighbor, a great part of the city of Batavia. And Mayor, how many acres is Fermilab?
6,800.
6,800. and they've been a very good neighbor for many of years, and they've just made a commitment to be a very good neighbor for many more years to come. And I'm a little bit concerned about somehow not incorporating Fermilab into our field, our town. I don't know how we could do it. That's what this whole exercise is about. But to me, it would be kind of maybe a slap in the face to our friends at Fermilab that for many of years, they've been a part of all of our signage, a part of our uniforms on our policemen, and now all of a sudden we're saying, well, changed our mind. You're no longer a part of our neighbors. So I'm concerned about that. And again, this is just, as you said, Scott, when you first started saying, you got to marinate on this a little bit. That's just something that I started thinking of as we're sitting here talking and I'm listening. I'm concerned about that aspect of what we're doing. That's all I got right now, Lucy. Thanks.
Good idea. Okay, now Nick, and then Scott, and then Tony.
One, I think this is a great opportunity to rebut that comment. We are powered by our neighbors. This is a tipping of our hat to Fermilab. And when we can play it that way, I think that's part of it. So I don't see that. But one thing I just wanted to bring up again, the importance to realize is familiarity breeds likeness. When you're thrown something, there's not many things anybody could have thrown up here and would be like, nailed it. So I think your marinating concept is very
it's true.
important, especially amongst 14 people. The more I look at it, the more I'm going to like it. I mean, that's hit songs. They play them over and over to make them hits because the more you hear them, the more you're going to like them. I mean, there's so many avenues. We just got to keep that in mind, that to give this some time and let it marinate. So.
Scott?
So, Dave, again, as I'm sitting here and looking at this and thinking on it, to appreciate what's gone on, I think there's a lot behind this. And I'm really starting to enjoy it. One of the things that I'm looking at, that Powered by Neighbors, I see where that goes. The environment, having the environments up there really help how you presented that. One of the things about the logo type that I'm really starting to settle in on is the accessibility of it. That's, for us, for my family, the reason why we moved to Batavia was because it was different. It was accessible. And that logo type is a bit accessible. Now, what's interesting is, you may not know this, but not see it, I do see a river in there. I see the flow within that
Logo type. Wavy.
that type.
Thank you.
And it's there. It's super subtle, but it's there.
Under the windmill.
Yeah, and that's something that is that's pretty cool. I really, as I'm sitting and digging on it. So,
Can I ask a question, please?
Digging on it.
Mm-hmm.
So, Richard, you designed a river in that logo.
Yeah.
Could you point it out to me just so I can see it?
Look at the top of the words.
As Scott was saying, you've got
the serifs.
the undulation here and the little waves. Not literal, but it can grow on you.
No.
And if you know the Batavia
There's flow to
By
it.
a river, and you see that, now, there could be an adjustment that could help that flow a little bit better,
You could
so to
egg
speak.
a little
But
bit, yeah.
that was the intention there. Plus, also, it was, if we're going to have the word neighbors in our promise, then I don't think the font should be stark and museum-like and unapproachable and classic and looking like the Art Institute, carved out of stone. I think it needs to be soft. It needs to have softer edges. It doesn't want to be hard. And it doesn't want to be like everything else. We were trying to do something that is not like everything else, that it's not necessarily expected from a city brand. Because what is expected? What do we want to do that's expected? We don't want to do anything expected. And there's a lot of uncomfortable feelings that come along with something. We can tell you that from some of our other clients who, for the first 3 weeks, they couldn't sleep at night because they're thinking, did we do this right? And now, 3 years later, they've found their own way through their brand. No, it's not ours, it's yours, it's everybody here. And I like the word right from the very beginning, marinate, that to start with that. But there are things that, after having heard everybody speak, that we can look at and we can manipulate and tweak a little bit that can make it even stronger.
Tony?
Yeah, I've been marinating a little bit here, but takes some time. I do like, the current logo, I think, has been one of the best around, but it is getting old, I agree. But it does incorporate, the city of energy, and a lot of people think, oh yeah, I know it's a city of energy because of Fermilab. Well, but then they're not aware of the history of windmill, and so it's been multifaceted. So that's a hard act to follow, but it is a bit dated. So I'm glad to see you still keep the windmill, and I would like to see the river more so, because that is a big piece. The lowercase b, as a former teacher, drives me nuts. But
And the lack of dot on the I.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that. The lowercase b is hard.
Yeah. But the thing that's been stewing for me, one thing that sets Batavia apart from our benchmarks, and not that it is the most, some of our neighbors are more diverse, but we have more diversity than a lot of places we compare ourselves to, the benchmarks. To the extent of Batavia has the oldest African-American community in Kane County. And I'm not seeing that anymore. In fact, I look at that windmill and I think, well, this is a white town. They're all the same. But more so, there's more than just that, though. There is Fermilab, our neighbor, and I couldn't agree with you more, Dave, that they've been an excellent neighbor. Batavia Schools has educated the children of scientists from around the world that have come to this community, and I think, that's really been something that's I've been proud of Batavia for. So that diversity piece, and I see this slide you have here,
And I only bring it up, if I may, in that really this sort of brand mark that we're talking about in the bottom left corner is, in the end, yes, it is a culmination of what we've all done together, and but in the end, it is truly a signature. You can't lead with just this all the time and say everybody should get everything from that and we're all set. If they can't get everything, then it's a bad signature. But it needs to be a signature, just like in all these pieces where it's the sign off. It's saying this is our character, and then the branding around it, what happens all around it, is the emotion and the aspiration that I was talking about earlier. That's what's expressive, and you can do that in so many different ways, like we show here, from history to the arts.
Right, and I see, to tie Fermilab into it, you throw one of those up there, you have the tower out at Fermilab on one side, and powered by scientists from around the world. I mean, that to me is how this is so usable in so many different ways.
Powered by science, yeah.
That you can draw those things in, powered by the power of our education system that we have here, powered by our people, showing them going out cleaning up the river. I mean, to me, there's just so many different ways that can be molded and used for whatever situation you want to try to tie into the city. And to be able to use that and have it be so simple as just those three simple words, I think is really the beauty to it, is that it can be adapted for whatever the city council at the time wants to use it for. They can turn it into the thing that fits that time in the city's history, or that brings that part of the city's history, or that part of the city's diversity, or whatever you want to use can be brought out through that.
Can the B be uppercase?
Yeah,
Would that throw it off?
These are things, now, again, we're not, this is our presentation, and I feel that, there are some things that can be tweaked and moved around where, if that's objection, there's nothing from a lowercase to an uppercase that says something that is completely opposite or contradictory to what we're doing here. The lowercase was just meant to have you focus more on those undulations and less on this initial cap. Also, when things are lowercase, they tend to be a little more friendly. And so when we have the word neighbors, again, we're trying to keep it more friendly. That's not to say that a mixed case is going to completely shatter this image. Yeah.
All right, and then other than the old State Farm, what was it, Marty? We are your good neighbor or something? Do you know of other taglines? Because it kind of reminds me of that. Are there do you know of other taglines that include neighbors?
Nothing? And we searched, and we also presented to the steering committee, we actually did a quiz where we asked people to match up tagline with the city and the region. So it's very interesting because some of them went with the city and some of them just didn't. And a lot of them were very similar, river this, garden that, It's very interesting to see that as an exercise and to come up with this where I don't want to say it's unrivaled, but there really isn't anything or anybody. We do a lot of work with municipalities and cities, and we haven't seen something like this anywhere, and we haven't done it ourselves, obviously. But people,
Dan's side is taken.
yeah, there are some good ones that are taken, which is good. They should be taken. But we feel that we need to be genuine. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to be genuine to who you all are. And people have so little time these days. And if we have 5 seconds, we want to hit them as soon as possible and as succinctly as possible, and then also as effectively as possible. There's not a lot of time, and we're trying to maximize the impact and minimize the time that it needs to sink in.
Just a second, Marty, one more question. Now that you have this, do you do any test marketing with this particular logo to get reaction other than with the council, but what you did with the survey?
Well, we're doing it here, so this is this is a start, and it's worked out pretty good. This is great discussion. I think it's fabulous discussion, and I think we need to do it. Yes and no, and again, I think a few of you have mentioned this, that you could show it to people, and you probably get, if Jackie was to do another survey, you'd probably get that split again that we got with the original windmill icon, not even the logo or the brand mark.
Actually, I'm going to say this about that. I will never test a logo or a tagline. I know enough from past history. For instance, when Nike tested their swoosh, the respondents crapped all over it. Seriously.
That's a technical term.
Yeah, sorry. And that swoosh is now one of the most iconic logos ever, and it was hated, hated, hated. I don't test logos exactly because they need to be marinated on, and you cannot marinate in a survey. So I strongly recommend you don't do that.
Thank you.
Just saying.
Marty?
Yeah, I have done like everybody else, thought about it, and I'm changing my really like it to actually I do love it. For the reason that people are bringing up certain parts of this and giving their different viewpoints, and I can see that in there. If we're talking about different diversity in there, I could see the different colors of the rainbow in that. I can see it, and it goes back to what everybody's actually honing on, is the transferability and the application of wider uses. It can be tailored to whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be the windmill. It can be, 15 people in a circle with the way that they're shaped. You can see some people will see the river, some people won't. But all of that is just going to bring about some dialogue. What does it mean to you? What do you see? What do you not see? To Dave's point about the patch, that patch was just of the Fermilab building. but what did that actually say? Did it convey that we were good neighbors, or did it convey a landmark status? I don't know, because you wouldn't really have that kind of wanting to get to know it more. This does to me, because I think it is that it's familiar, so you have a lot of that. People will see what they want to see, and if you want to see history, you're going to see that. And that's not wrong. But if you see all the different things where it has been modernized and not completely thrown out, because I go back to, we always say we don't want to trust the experts and we don't want to design by committee. Well, here's the experts. Let's not do the committee. Let's look at what it is. And if you don't see something that you like, find something that you do and sell that, because they know their jobs.
Mayor, can we have your input?
Well, I certainly support the idea here. The only negative I've heard about it is that the bottom line, powered by neighbors, several people who I showed this to suggested to me that what we were saying is we rely on Geneva and St. Charles power. And I mean, I'm thinking that maybe, if nothing else, there should be some kind of a word there that nullifies that, or says that we're our own independent city and we're not relying on Geneva.
There's a tagline right there.
Yeah, there you go. We're our own.
wordy.
I think that's a good one. We're our own independent city. But anyway,
Have a powered by community.
We're not the downriver
Oh.
stepchild
Right.
anymore.
But I gotta say, I still fail to see the river. Okay? So, and I don't mean to
It's
design
1 out of 14,
anything,
we're not doing
you
too
know,
bad.
but I am, it's marinating, as people have been saying, and so I do like it. I like its availability, okay? But I honestly, I have to say again, you know, contrary to what Chris was saying there, you know, the river 5 years ago, before the mayor took down all the brush, and we took the brush down on the east side, you couldn't see the river except if you were on the bridge.
Right.
We didn't know there was a river running through our town, only when we crossed the bridge. Now the river is more accessible. The Park District is buying property, making the river more accessible to the people. So in a short span of time, and that was only 4 or 5 years ago, within 5 years or more, the river will be even more accessible. So I think the river is important, not to stay static here, but to bring that to our future also. Okay? So I'll get off the river. I do have a question. My question is, how long do these last? This branding?
good question.
It's a good question. I mean, that's. You want to talk to that?
Yeah,
I mean, I've got my ideas, but go ahead.
Well,
Seems relevant.
brands tend to go through evolutions. And so you seldom see somebody just absolutely walking away from everything that was in their current brand and do something that nobody would recognize. It usually is incremental, and it's evolutionary rather than revolutionary, and that helps bring their old brand advocates along with them, as well as them being able to attract the new ones. So it's seldom a stark change. And there have been some companies and some organizations that have tried those stark changes and have really decided that was not the best idea and have gone back to the old one. So the other thing I would say too about the river is the river was, when people talk to us, was a feature of the city, but it wasn't the reason they were here. You know, they didn't come here because, oh boy, I'm going to be a, it's a wonderful thing to have, we love it, and we use it with our neighbors, or we use it with our family. It's a very family-friendly kind of thing, so it really supports the whole family friendliness of it too. So that's what we heard, and then obviously what you see here tonight is a reflection of what we heard from everybody.
And I think sort of to dovetail with what Marianne just said, you know, your question about the river and the longevity of the brand, this particular brand from here on in, I think most importantly is as you do develop, yes, you've broken down the brush, you've cleared out a lot of hurdles, right, to the river, and it's opened it up. But I think as it does become a defining feature, that's when you go to the next evolution, rather than still not a revolution. You go from one step, now we take it to the next. We'd love to be involved with that because we know your town so well. We love this, but we feel that's sort of the next step. That's the nexus of the growth of this brand.
So can I task you one more time? I guess it would be, to Tony's point, okay, we are a diverse community, and we're more than a tolerant community. So I like the logo, and I like how it applies in a lot of different areas and situations. What I would personally, Michael O'Brien, would love to see is a logo that had black faces and brown faces and yellow faces. It had couples of men and women and men and women and women. It's just to let people know that we are a community of people and accepting of one another. And that resonates very strongly within me. And I think with my neighbors and throughout my community, I feel strongly about that. And I believe we all as a community feel strongly about that.
And if, I don't have them digitally. I can show you on my laptop, but there are versions where we have looked at a multicolored option of this. And that's exactly what we were thinking when we did that version. And I don't believe that, again, as the uppercase versus lowercase b, that would be a problem. I think that if this logo was, the mark itself was intact and that color became introduced into it, or it became a window into a river, illustrative sort of river landscape, I don't see anything wrong with that. That becomes now a living brand. It becomes something that can be interpretive of who you are. And color is huge, right? It plays a big part of this. And I think that's something that's very possible. In fact, almost festive, right? I mean, you could see it being a modulation of, and actually even more pointing out those individual blades within the collective windmill itself. So I think that could work nice.
Susan?
Okay, so I'm a fast marinade. I've gone over to simmer. What I don't understand, quite honestly, about this project is I've looked at, as we've been sitting here, I've looked at surrounding communities. I've looked at communities kind of all over the place. And their city logo is very, staid isn't a good word. It's solid. This is a great marketing campaign, and I totally get all of its uses in terms of being able to say powered by whoever, whatever. But when it comes to, can I picture this on the side of our squad cars? No. Can I picture this on the patches of our police officers and firemen? No. Because it's very casual. I guess that's what bothers me so much about it, is it's for a city logo, for something that is as concrete as a city. Like, this is government and this is city. It's so markety. And I guess that really bothers me. I mean, I look at Geneva and I look at St. Charles and I look at other communities around us and go, it's a great marketing campaign. I totally get the marketing side of it, but in terms of being grounded, I just don't feel it. And I think that's what overall, as I marinated through it, that's what bothers me so much about it.
Yeah.
Scott?
Quick rebuttal. So, to answer the multicolor one, I think that's a great treatment that you can do. I mean, when you're doing your corporate guidelines with this, you can have different versions of that logo that you can use, because whenever you're doing a logo, you also have to consider how it's going to be reproduced in one color, because that's going to be on squad cars, on things like that. You got to understand how you're going to see it in black a lot. So, if you have one logo that has multicolors, you're going to lose that a lot. So that's something to consider when you're doing that. I would challenge what you're saying, Susan, in regards to all the other communities around here. Great, they can be boring and they can be solid. We're different. We're different, okay? We're not the Crossroads of the Fox Valley or whatever. You know, so, and I'm a little bit excited about this because it's different. We're different. Celebrate it. Why not?
I messaged one of my neighbors, one of my friends who lives in the community, and I said, what do you think of this as our new tagline? And she said, I hate my neighbors. Why would I want to live in a town that says powered by neighbors? So it's great that we're all kumbaya-ing and say, isn't this a great town that's powered by neighbors? There are a lot of people in Batavia who don't like their neighbors, who are
let's
not,
say
don't
our neighbors
feel
suck.
It's
Powered by hatred.
I see it rubbing a lot of people the wrong way. I mean, think about the difference in people. We're a group of people who obviously volunteer. We obviously get involved. We have a good cross-section. The people who took the survey are people who care enough to take a survey. Okay, that's 800 people. There are 32,000 other people who could care less. And now we're shoving powered by neighbors down their throat. I don't know. I'm not feeling it. And I'm sorry. I am a traditionalist and I am what was the word?
Stick in the mud?
No. Yeah, that's what it is.
I think your feedback is very good.
I mean, I just, it makes me feel cringy.
See, I get that point. I don't want to steal. You go ahead and start yours.
No, I was just going to say, I'm past my comment about energy because the more we talk about it, the more I thought about how you use the line in the other ways. And I'm thinking even with the logo, it's like, obviously it's people and stuff, how you can create marketing or visuals that, the people are along the road and then they come together around to create the windmill and stuff like that. I can see some really cool things that we can do with that. So, and I agree with you, Scott. Why be boring? Why be stately? I mean, you can go and find plenty of city logos around the country that people that celebrate things a little bit more, and they're not just boring Times New Roman. And I think that's the thing is we've gone from a very, very conservative logo to doing this. That's why marinating on it for a while is like, wow, that's really different. And the more I sit here and just listen and keep on looking as you're scrolling back and forth on different things, the more it does grow on me. So
I'm just glad it's not Comic Sans, because then I would have had to just bang my head on the desk.
Papyrus.
Or Papyrus would have been good too.
So you're saying it's basically the font? It's the font. Okay.
And the color.
And the
Can I ask how many other logos you came up with and that you were very close to saying this one might do it, but you narrowed it down to this one?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was probably two others that we were looking at that were potentially in the running. Neither of them were as accessible as this.
What do you mean accessible?
As far as that, it definitely suggests windmill, but it also goes beyond that. It can be, I mean, when you start to see it smaller like this and not this giant logo on the screen, there's almost a sunrise or a sun sort of element to it, a weather vane. There's traditional things, and then the way it's treated is more contemporary. And we believe that mix is what Mary Ann was talking about as far as the evolution rather than revolution, because we didn't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. We wanted to keep it in the same vernacular, but give it, it's not just a refresh, it is a reinterpretation of who Batavia is. The other ones were, quite honestly, more designy. You probably hate them even more. I did.
Okay.
I mean, no, really. I mean, they're way more, you know what? They are more museum and they are more elegant and sophisticated and solid, but they just looked like too many other things to us. We didn't feel that they were, and one of them was just a little too busy. This cuts it down to the essence of it. We kept coming back to it, and it has changed in and of itself. This went through 4 different versions before it became this. And, I don't want to bore you all with the process, but it's just the arcs and the little curves that we put in here and there You know, the original one had the logo all the way around. It was a perfect circle. There were no little scallops all along. That was boring. This was just enough. We want to do just enough that we create that aspirational feel, but not so much that we scare everybody away, make everybody feel that this is, not a symbol for us.
Anyone else?
I guess I'll just have one comment back about the neighbor side of it. I look at it and think of all the applications that I can just rattle off for the different groups and different things that happen in this town and how they are huge groups of neighbors, whether it be in the boosters or whether it be in Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or, any of the things that we have that happen year-round or at different times of the year in the city are really powered by the neighbors. Whether you know it or not, or whether somebody likes somebody or doesn't, there are groups out there constantly that are involved in things, from cleaning up the river to, the bike committee to the green walk, all the other things that happen every year in the city. The farmers market, there's just group after group after group that to me could all use this logo, can all use that tagline, and they can build from it. That's the thing that I think the more I hear this, the more we've talked about this tonight, I just keep saying, okay, well, it'll work for this, it'll work for that, it'll work for this. Yeah. And I think with buy-in from those groups or all those different stakeholders that are out there, it could take 10 years before we wear this out.
Could we
or
do this
before
as
we
our
use every
marketing
application of it. What?
Could we do this as our marketing logo and campaign and stuff, and then have a solid logo for those, like the police and the fire and the lectern and...
Can I comment on that? It's interesting that you say that because that's what we did in St. Cloud.
Mm-hmm.
We had presented St. Cloud Greater, which is literally a chevron. It's the greater
I know,
sign.
I've looked at it.
The mayor enjoyed it so much that he said, that's our city brand. And it's a moving forward. It goes to the right.
Right.
And it's, if you follow them on Facebook and you follow the social media and you're there in that town or you check in on him, he's doing a weekly message. And to me, even though we created that brand, he pushes it forward. And it's the weekly video message to the city that makes the brand and not the chevron. It's the simplest shape in the world. I didn't know if I absolutely loved it. It was appropriate for what they were looking for. And they wanted, and originally it was a placemaking brand. We didn't go in to create a city brand. We actually did the opposite with them. And then he came back and he said, I love this so much, we're adopting it. And we adopted it. And it's what you do with it. I think that's what there's a lot of folks here saying that tonight. And it's more of what you do with it than just this silly thing up on the, I almost don't want to show this anymore up on the screen just by itself, because it's more important to see it on that lapel pin. It's more important to see it everywhere else, but like this. This is the worst it's going to ever be. This is the ugliest it'll ever be. It's going to be beautiful when people are interpreting it for themselves and it stands on its own.
What about like city entry signs and police officers and squad cars? And because that's really when you have just the logo standing on its own. So how do you make it so it doesn't look so, I hate to say this word, Walmarty. I think it's the yellow.
Like Walmart.
Like, I was like, oh my God, Walmart logo.
There's a police car right
I think
there.
it looks better than Walmart.
I know that's,
But does it look
that.
like Walmart?
You hated the police
I
car?
hated that.
Yeah, I'm
I
putting
look
that
at
up.
it. I look at it and I think of where it was with the yellow box around it. It's like National Geographic.
Yeah.
In that respect, I look at that and that's what I see there. Now I don't know if I'm so keyed in on the squad car.
Or the police.
I really don't
fire
care what
truck.
it says on the
We can
squad
take
car
our-
as long as the car's there.
Honestly, when it comes to first responders, those are probably two of the most conservative
Right.
groups within our organization. And I don't think it's necessary to throw away utilizing it for the rest of the city.
Right.
We can look at those separately.
Yeah, because it's a great marketing campaign. Don't get me wrong. I think the marketing part of it is terrific. I love the powered by and then a lot of different applications. But
Lucy, I think there's a couple people in the audience that
Okay.
have comments.
Yes. Anyone in? Okay, come
You gotta
on
come
up.
up and use the mic.
Come on, Danny, come on up.
You gotta come up and use the mic. It doesn't get on the tape, it doesn't go on TV.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
I really like the neighbor idea. I didn't like it at first, but now I like it. At Water Street, one of the things that makes us special, I think, is that we are inclusive. And I'm working with Geneva and St. Charles and Aurora, and they're hard to work with. They don't want to work with other communities. And we're trying to break down that barrier. And I think if we want to differentiate ourselves, we should be inclusive rather than shutting out those other communities and saying, well, Batavia is different or Batavia operates on its own. We don't. We definitely don't. So I'm trying to break down that barrier a little bit. And I'm hoping maybe this logo or this little phrase might help, because I think neighbors translates much more than the person standing next to you or living next to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very transferable. It's very accessible to the younger generation. I will speak for younger people since they're not here. But yeah, I think the thing that makes Batavia unique is that we are inclusive, and that really separates us. So embracing that, I think, is really important.
Thank you. Well, I think that what we want to do, I'm getting feedback that we want to marinate on this for a little while. And maybe we should talk about it in the next meeting.
Sounds good.
You did a
The next
15-minute
POW
marinade.
agenda is pretty full. Do you want to, maybe if we talk about it on the 13th?
That'd be
13th is the night of the public meeting on the volunteerism.
Okay.
And we
Then
can
the
have
6th.
volunteer shirts all ready to go.
Neighbors, powered by neighbors.
Okay.
Right there for
Put it
everybody.
on the-
Yep.
The 6th is also the annual report from the departments.
All right. So, well, we've been working on this a year. We can wait a couple more weeks if you want. I mean, we should be.
I just don't want to get too far away from
Okay.
the memory of, what's been presented here
All
today.
right,
So
then
maybe we'll try to
6th.
work it out for the 6th.
Okay.
So what's, run that by me, please.
Okay, we're gonna think about this and come
Marinate.
back and discuss it and probably decide whether we want to go with it or not.
Well, are you going to give us maybe, as you heard, of some of this tweaking that
That's-
maybe
yeah.
is a good idea? Are you going to do anything different, or are you just going to leave it the way it is?
Maybe we need, that's probably something we need to talk about. I guess we could talk about it now. Do we want to, maybe could we have a couple this and then a couple tweaked versions?
Yeah.
All right, would that be enough?
Absolutely.
One with the color and one with the
Yeah.
river, or both, or something? All right, so for March 6th? Can we have it for March 6th?
Let me get this copy.
Or a little bit before, so we can
Can we get a
see
copy of this too?
Yeah, Chris said he's sending it out for
Yeah,
presentation.
Chris does have a copy of this. Yeah, I think we can do a couple of variations as long as, yes.
You think so?
Mar-
Is that
March
pushing it?
6th? Okay, yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, item number 9, discussion on the strategic plan review, mission, vision, value, SWOT analysis, and major topics. Alderman Atack.
Okay, well, this has been something we've been trying to get to for a while. The council did come up with a plan, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago now. And since planning and policy is one of the major tasks that we as a council are given, this is a really important conversation to have. So important that I'm wondering if 9:15 is the right time to start it.
I think we need to start.
Okay, so we need to start. So we'll start. And I'll turn it over to you, Laura.
Okay, so at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, we decided on a process for the review of the current strategic plan. And as an initial matter, we were going to look at the value statement, the vision, and the mission statement, as well as do a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, so that we understood what the current environment looks like, and then to evaluate, we currently have 6 different major topics under which we have our objectives, whether those were the right objectives or not. So since that meeting, I sent out a survey to all of the aldermen to respond and give remarks about the values, vision, and mission, as well as what they see as the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I sent that out via email, but would anyone like a hard copy of it for our discussion tonight? I'll just send these either direction. If we take a look first at the value statements, a number of we got some different remarks back that there were, the current value statement is okay, but just needs a little bit of tweaking. But then there were others who came back and said that it should be simplified. That rather than having statements, maybe we should just have some categories for those value statements. And I'm just wondering, that seems to be sort of a stark differentiation between whether we want to just say that we have categories for the value, or do we want to continue with the statements? And then there's also a suggestion of having a hybrid.
A hybrid seems to make sense then, a good compromise.
And whatever recommendations you make, I would be happy to go back and try to prepare something for you to review that's a reflection of your comments, so that you've got a working document that you can then review the following time.
Are there any more comments on the value statements? So I think that your suggestion to come back with a hybrid, based on the comments that we've received so far, would be a good one to move on.
Does everybody agree, or anybody disagree with that?
Good with that?
Okay. The next is the vision statement and the mission statement. The vision statement is forward-looking, aspirational, what we're trying to move toward being in the future. The mission statement is basically trying to say succinctly what we are trying to do as an organization. So there were a few remarks, not much change there. A lot of the commentary there was, again, just suggestions of different words that we could use, adding things like fiscal responsibility to our mission statement. Adding to the vision statement, I think it came up a couple of times, adding working with residents and our community to perform or working toward what our vision of the future is.
Any comments? Drew?
The mission statement, as it's written now, I felt like was ultimately generic. You could take that and slap it on any town, anywhere. It's like a hotel saying, our mission is to provide travelers a place to sleep by renting them a room with a bed and a bathroom. It's what they do.
Right.
And this is what cities do. So I feel like the mission should incorporate some of what it really is our mission to do, besides provide base level municipal services, to be welcoming to businesses and residents, provide, providing essential services, but being welcoming. more of almost a little bit more of what's out of the vision, but the things we try to aspire to do in our daily lives that make a difference. So it's excellence of services, it's ease of use of City Hall, easy to work with, those kind of things that set us apart, making the most of our natural, we were talking about the river, to make the most of our natural environment and be good stewards, so provide great services, but also be good stewards of our environment, make the most of our natural resources, that kind of feeling. And I haven't sat and crafted it, but
I think that that's true of the vision statement too. I think it should be more forward-looking and also, but talk about generations to come and a little bit more inspiring. I think it's somewhat generic.
I would agree.
I think it's kind of funny because as my memory serves me, when we went back and we did this the last time, that was one of the things we said, well, we wanted to get away from being out there in our mission and vision statements and be more concrete, more reality-based of what we were doing, and not to make it fluffy, but make it real.
Yeah, and I don't think we're trying to, I don't think I'm suggesting getting out there. I'm saying things we know we want to do. We want to evolve the river. Let's make that part of.
Right. And I think that that's something that, to me, has changed over the course of the time I've been on the city council, is that's more the vision of the council than it was 10 or 12, 15 years ago, where it was just kind of sustain what we had, not look for growth, look for opportunities, or look for preserving the natural habitat that we have.
Make sure we get the streets plowed and the garbage picked up.
That was the reality then, and now I think it's different because I hate to draw this to it, but I think it is almost marketing, where that becomes part of what we're trying to lay out here. Is if somebody does come in and look at the city and look at what's online, if they see something that they're just trying to provide what they're supposed to provide, and that's all they're doing. And I think that's kind of what I think you're trying to say is it should be more than that.
We should distinguish ourselves, as you're saying, and be a little bit more inspirational. Scott?
So I think one of the things that we have to remember is what the purpose is of a value statement, a vision statement, and a mission statement is. So I'm just going to read a couple of things. So a value statement describes what the organization believes and how it will behave. And it kind of becomes and it becomes our kind of moral compass. A vision statement describes the organization that would appear in a future successful state. What do we want to be 10 years from now, right? And then a mission statement explains the organization's reasons for existence. So, I mean, you can get all, la-di-da and frou-frou in our mission statement, but that it really needs to be somewhat concrete. So our vision statement needs to be the one that says, hey, this is where we want to go. We want to be powered by the neighbors. Those are, there are things we want to aspire to. There's that word again. So you have to keep those in mind with those three different levels of thinking.
And that's why I think that we need to think about posterity or generations to come in our vision statement. But the mayor's mentioned this maybe a couple of times, history. I think we want to still make sure that we emphasize the importance of history to our town and how it compares, but at the same time progress, and we have done that in some of our taglines before, but kind of show the contrast, because I think that's unique about our town.
I like the mission statement that someone added just the two words, "and improve," because that looks like it's forward. Good job, Scott. It's forward thinking, because we're not just staying the same, we're improving it. And I don't think you have to, in the mission statement, you have to specifically spell out every way which we aspire to improve. It's just enough, because the mission statement, if I remember when we went through this 2 other times, should be as succinct as possible. The flowery stuff goes in the vision statement.
Any other comments?
Hey, Scott, what's that mission statement? What is that? You just gave us what the statements were.
Oh, the definition?
definition.
It explains the organization's reasons for existence.
Well, I kind of like what Drew had to say then. I mean, I think, we're here, we're obviously to provide a higher quality of life for the residents, but also to be good stewards of the land and of the river and the environment. I mean, we're tearing the environment apart, and so let's stop doing that and be more sustainable. And so I think Drew had an excellent point.
Yeah, I think we could, with, a couple of words like through the sustainable development. There's a few little things I think we could add in there in the vision statement by taking it and saying, Batavia is to be the most vibrant and welcoming community for all our residents, to be inclusive in it and to try to make it encompass really what I think everybody thinks, but to get it a little bit different on paper. I'm not the writer, but I can see that to me, there's a couple things that are missing there. And I think some of the stuff we picked out tonight, if we just add or tweak a little bit to it, again, it evolves and it aspires to get to another place.
The word all makes a big difference.
Yeah,
in that.
Changes it.
It does.
You did this the last time, didn't you? You and
Yes.
You and Lisa.
Yeah, it was one of those that got to disseminate all the stuff on the big boards and try to come up with
Right.
2 lines out of 27.
Maybe it's a little bit easier this round where you're tweaking.
Yeah, when you're
what
changing
already
1 or 2
exists.
words, I think is a lot easier than trying to put the whole thing together. Because I think that this does say what I believe most of us think we should be doing, or what we're supposed to be doing. I think, again, I don't want to get far ahead of us, but I think when we get through with this, it becomes then our obligation to figure out how we make that happen. And that's the part that we've not done well over the last 15 years.
Let's start.
Baby steps.
Do you have enough feedback?
I think so. I think so, to come back with a draft of something for next time. The next page looks at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and maybe we can take those in turn. Again, there were a lot of common themes here. One of the things that I found interesting was that oftentimes electric was mentioned as both a strength and a weakness. That we recognize the strengths in the fact that we have our own electric utility, and there's the reliability of service and the immediate response when things are wrong, because those are city employees who are responding to our residents in those situations, as opposed to the weakness being the large commitment that we have through the contract to a certain amount of purchased power and reliance on obtaining large electric business users as well. But I think those are both apt observations. The other thing that is a strength that was remarked upon by most was the river, those things that we utilize the river for recreation, and that's definitely something that is an advantage that we have in our community, that we have to both, on the one hand, it is a strength of our community, but on the other hand, we need to do things to work to enhance that as well. So I'll talk about it again when we get down to opportunities. I noted a lot that people are happy with the staff of the city and find them to be very, they do their jobs well, and that's one of our strengths. Our fiscal responsibility and our fiscal stability, although in some it's in such an environment that we're in right now, when we look down at threats, we'll talk about, the threat of the instability of our state fiscal and how that threatens our fiscal strength here as a city. Fire and police were noted by more than one as a big strength here, as well as our other governmental agencies, that those are also something that is very strong. Are there other things that people wanted to bring out? Proximity to Chicago, that we're a community where you can easily jump on public transportation and make it into the city and enjoy all of the that has to offer. Are we missing anything?
I will just make a comment that, and you alluded to this earlier, that we've had several comments within the logo that was presented tonight about a river not running through it. We have, in our SWOT analysis, we have, lots of comments about the strength of having a river running through it as far as of our community. And yet, we don't really have a vision for our river. So there is a disconnect there that needs to be addressed within this process.
Yes.
I think on the weakness side, I think it's apparent to a lot of us that we have issues on the development side where I think that there are technological advances, there are other ways that I think we could approach some of the permitting processes we have, some of the things that we do to utilize the staff that we have without having to increase that staff to make the processes better. And I don't know, again, that's something we have to figure out how we are going to address that as a council. But I think that moving into the future, that's going to be something we have to think about. I mean, the simple things that, it takes so long to get a inspection or it takes so long to get a permit, I think that that's something that we have to address, a short-term solution to some of those.
Communication also, that's something that we're definitely working on, and it's a work in progress, but that was recognized that that's an area where we could improve, and I think technology that also speaks to that.
Especially when everybody thinks they deserve an instantaneous response because, God, if I post it on Facebook, I can get 6 answers from people that, if they have to, drive out there to look at what happened on Randall and Main Street.
Right.
Before the city could ever post or think to post a response because there's people that are doing that. That's just the reality of this world. And how do we, as the city, take advantage of that and be able to use that to confirm or deny things, especially as it pops up on a daily basis. Why was the street blocked off on Main Street? Why are all the police downtown? There's questions like that every day that come up, and I think, we're addressing a lot more than we were, and I think we're doing a better job of it. But I think that that's going to become more and more a daily, if not hourly, occurrence. And if we want to stay in front of that, that's something we're going to have to talk about, how we do that.
It was also noted the cost to keep up with the repair and maintenance of our infrastructure. That's also an identified weakness that we need to find a way to be able to do that. We have taken some steps to try to address the issue, but we're not all the way there yet. Traffic flow through our downtown, as well as availability of convenient parking for those who are visiting the downtown areas. Those two were mentioned as potential weaknesses as well. Anything else?
So Laura, the next step is to look at the major areas, the objectives?
We still have to go through opportunities and threats.
Oh,
So
sorry.
that's okay, no problem. You know, whereas strengths and weaknesses are things that we look at internally, then these opportunities and threats are things that are external to our environment, but that could have an effect on our ability to achieve our objectives. So one of the things that was remarked by a number of people, an opportunity to us, and I think it came out in the branding discussion as well, is while we're doing some things with the river, there's a lot more that we could be doing to increase the value of the river to our residents, and then also utilizing the river as an attraction for people to be visitors to our community as well. And then also it was noted again, we have electric, that the opportunity would be that if the cost of power in general rises, the fact that we own our own electric utility, of course, we're hoping that at some point that's going to give us a cost advantage to be able to hold costs steady while other communities see those costs rise. So that could be an opportunity on the horizon for us as well. Vacant business spaces are opportunities that we have in our community to fill those spaces with the types of businesses that you have a vision for being part of our downtown and for our retail corridors of our town. I think that's pretty much identified opportunities from the survey responses. And then threats, external threats like the change in the retail industry with, and certainly that came to roost here with the closing of our Sam's Club and Walmart identifying as the change in retail to being more online as one of their primary motivators for closing that store. Others noted the increase in the meal delivery that's happening, and what effect will that have on the future of the restaurant industry, as well as millennials and their differing buying habits, both as it comes to consumer goods, but also what they're expecting from housing stock. Are they looking to buy a house that has a yard, or are they looking more for housing that has common area maintenance where they don't, that's not, necessarily their thing? Or are they looking for not having a yard altogether and expecting more of apartment living? As well as people age, being able to accommodate those individuals within our community as well, to try to retain those residents while still them being able to find a comfortable place to stay in our community, and yet they can move out of their homes and make room for new residents in our community as well. Any other threats? I think we should weave this into the document that becomes our strategic plan.
I think the only thing that I would consider a threat is, it's one of those ones that we kind of touched upon that Alan mentioned as a weakness, is maybe like our communication strategy and how we're getting information out there. And I think while we've kind of moved a lot of this towards some opportunity with hiring Chris and the things that he's been doing, I think right now we kind of have to view it more in the lines of a threat because of the manner and the speed in which everything can get disseminated so quickly, and wrong information can get disseminated so quickly. I saw today there were people posting on Facebook that there was a lockdown over at Bertolo, and And people are, no, that's not, I've got kids over there too, but then that just enhances confusion. And the way people are right now, that I think we're now in a hopefully short-term phase, but it probably will be a little bit longer, of if you don't have a good communication strategy, which I think Chris knows, you might look incompetent, inept. But what we're dealing with right now is a lot of fear, false, look how many schools have been shut down for wrong information or the information that was out there, that it could take a dangerous situation and actually have some real life-threatening consequences to it. So it's us being a lot more proactive in giving and letting Chris make sure that he's getting the information out there as quickly as possible so that it can be shared. So as we are seeing, there's a lot of people that want to pass information. And in the absence of us, they will pass along any information. So we need to make sure that we're getting that information to everybody so that cascades faster and can tamper it down.
Good point. Other threats or opportunities or any of these categories? I think you guys really identified a lot of things that are important in the environment, and I think that they're going to inform this next step in the process, which, Anthony, could I ask for your help with the easels? Sure. Could we set those up in the front? The easels have on them the 6 current categories that we've got right now in terms of kind of the bigger buckets that we have our objectives laid out under. And I put a pad of Post-it notes in front of you with a marker.
Just shoot your marker.
Oh, boy. Open marker.
You think it was an accident, should be pink?
There it is.
Yeah, there we go. And so what I thought I'd do is, if you would, write down what you feel like the major categories for our objectives should be. I have an idea that they're going to, some of them will sound similar to what we have already, but that it needs to be tweaked. So for instance, environmental identity, we may hone that environmental identity to be a little bit more specific, because I think one of the things that was identified as a possibility for improvement upon the current strategic plan is that we could be more specific. These things sounded too generic, and it was difficult to tell whether we'd achieved it or not. So these are our 6 categories currently, which are service delivery and financial sustainability, environmental identity, housing, community connectivity, business development and retention, and downtown development.
I'll take environmental identity for 200.
Only 200?
What is?
I got to start.
It's a daily double.
You have to answer this in a form of a question.
We're looking, so are these the right categories to begin with? Because the categories, then, we're going to identify objectives under each of the categories that we have. That's the way that our strategic plan is currently structured. You've got service delivery and financial sustainability. The top of the page is the rationale as to why that's a topic that needs to be addressed. And then underneath there are strategic goals and objectives for service delivery and financial sustainability. For instance, the first one is to develop a 5-year financial management plan, which has been accomplished. We put that in every annual budget that we have.
So like under housing, you could say diversification, and that would be,
List out.
It would need more specific,
This
because you want a SMART goal.
it's not nearly big enough.
No. So I guess the topic for tonight was just, are those the right categories of objectives to have? They might be.
Yeah.
I was going to ask that, Laura. I mean, I don't want to pop a hole in anybody's balloon.
No.
But how much more are you planning on doing? Because this is serious stuff and it takes a lot of brain power. And I'll be honest with you, my brain power is about dead for tonight.
Okay.
So I don't know how much more you're trying to do tonight.
Just those topics. That was the only other thing that was on the agenda, but we certainly could push this for our March meeting, because we want to meet, I think the commitment was on a monthly basis.
Well, I feel that they're not descriptive enough. And for instance, I'm wondering, I mean, just to respond, but I'm happy to move it on, but service delivery and financial sustainability seem almost like two different groups to me. I don't know, an environmental identity doesn't seem descriptive to me. It's maybe environmental sustainability, so I think we could tweak it a little bit, but I think overall, we're kind of in the right areas.
I kind of have a pretty good memory of this, and the reason we put those two together was because they tied together so tightly, because to be able to provide the services, you have to figure out how to pay for them, and that's why those two stayed together. Those were separated to begin with, because financial sustainability was going to be a kind of an overall, overarching part of it, because no matter what else you did, you had to figure out how to do that first, or you couldn't provide any of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, maybe under the same category, they could be separated or something.
And that's why we kept them together there, because those were the two that were so closely linked to each other, because depending on what you decided you were going to deliver as far as services, you had to figure out how to pay for them.
Yeah, I understand.
The environmental identity one was more so.
Identity is just a weird word there.
What do we want to be seen as in our plan as what we thought the environmental policy should be for the city? What things did we over a 5 or 10 year period want to see the city promote or work on through the plan in that time frame? And that's what environmental identity was. The housing side, again, was what do we want to do over 5 or 10 years with our housing stock and what we had.
If I could make a recommendation to take what we're doing here, this is all great and good discussion, but given I think it's kind of tough to kind of tag on what Dave's saying, because I know my neighborhood brain is starting to power down. If we can take what we did with this, have the SWOT analysis, have it so we can work on it in the next week or 2 weeks, however we want to do it, we can come back and then have it out with our post-it war and see what works.
Sounds good.
Laura, I just had a question. The downtown development, how is that different than business development and housing and community connectivity? Because all three of those kind of go into the downtown. There's elements of each of those things in the downtown development. So with what Scott was saying about making the river the focus, change downtown development to river development, and everything else is going to be covered in the others. But now you've had a specific goal with the river.
I think
Since that's what everybody's been talking
right,
about.
and the river, to me, would be one of the goals in the downtown development area. The downtown development area was really there because we were talking about streetscape. We were talking about what we wanted to do downtown. Business development was everything from the industrial park on the east side to Randall Road corridor to south into Mooseheart. I mean, it was really overall business development and retention within the city. And then downtown development was its own little world that, okay, this is something that we think we're really going to be able to create something by starting with River Street and streetscape work, and we need to keep that separate so that way when we focus on one or two things in that section, we focus on those things.
Can I just interject here a couple of thoughts I have on what Alan just said? One of the things I think we need to do is maybe set some parameters for where we're going to go in the future with development on the business front. And one of the concerns I have is that we've had people waltz in here off and on in the last couple of years and suggest that, well, maybe some of that commercial out there on Randall Road isn't going to work, so let me tear down Avenue Motors and build an apartment building on it, or something like that. And I think there should be, my view, that we should have some kind of a firm statement on the part of the city that probably the 1,200 feet frontage of Randall Road from Fabian Parkway down to Mooseheart Road should probably be reserved for some type of business development, specifically that's generating some revenue to the city, because quite frankly, that's what's allowed us to drop the property tax and generate the revenue that we can hire more cops and more firemen at a time when we seriously need more cops and more firemen. And we need that revenue source. You can't deny it. And for us to go out there and discombobulate it and start letting people build houses on it, or, you know, I even was told that the Kane County coroner was looking at Avenue Motors wanting to move the county morgue out there. You know, can you imagine? I mean, I just say that with you know, great reservation, because what we really need to do here, I think, is protect the revenue source. It's been kind of the secret to our success, where we have lowered the property tax of the city from $1.05 down to 69 cents this past year, and we've generated a lot of jobs. We've put a lot of people to work, college and high school, that can find a second job working in one of the many stores on Randall Road, and you know, we've gotten pretty good reviews from the citizens that they like that they can go into Batavia and shop and find great stores. And for us to go out there and discombobulate that business frontage area, I think would be a tragic mistake. So if we got anything strategic that we want to plan here, I guess I'm of the opinion that preserving the Randall Road frontage has to be a high priority.
And I think that's where the comprehensive plan and land use plans come in, that that's what you fall back on to say, this is what's designated out there, this is what, you know, is permitted in those areas, these are what the zoning maps say, and this is what we should stay with. I mean, we almost made a change and a jump on that on the east side to switch over to industrial on that lovely piece of property out by the water tower out there, but we saw kind of what happened with public outcry on that one. And I think, again, this would be something if we were to give away a big piece of property like that right in the middle of a commercial district, where we would get a lot of heat for that.
Well, I couldn't agree with you, Mayor, anymore. I mean, I think that is, you hit it right on. I mean, we need revenues. I mean, we need to maintain our revenue, and we need to increase our revenue in a profound way. I mean, our infrastructure is crumbling. You know, the river banks are crumbling. We talk about, you know, we need to do something, and we have no money to do it. So we need to get money, and so we can't be giving up any sources of our revenue. And so I think you hit the nail right on the head. You know, we have to maintain that. And whatever we can do in our downtown also for revenue generation.
Well, the other part of this is that you know, being down here every day for parts of the day, I have encounters with Laura and people that she's talking with. Certainly there's some people in here dancing around at the moment looking at the riverfront in downtown Batavia, because I think with the things that you guys have allowed to be done the last few years, we've opened up that river, and a lot of people now can open their eyes and just see it. It's right there in front of them. And I mean, I would cite probably the Larson and Becker piece, and, you know, probably down here where the Shumway Foundry was, which is now getting the new sewer plant built, and the smell and the look is going to change. And so now we got people in here saying, gee, maybe this could be a great place for some really nice condos, or this could be a hotel, or whatever. So, I mean, I think downtown Batavia has the opportunity to join Randall Road and be an economic engine for us and do some really neat things, because once you get that standard raised higher, then the neighborhoods around it, and I would point to both the older neighborhoods on the east and west side, have gone through a really impressive restoration, and they're not tearing the house down, but they're totally rebuilding it, putting in the bigger kitchens and the bathrooms, and doing stuff that really holds on to this character of the neighborhood and keeps the 100-year-old look but inside it's a modern world in there. And those are all great things to have, and I mean, I think those are the traits that we need to be recognizing in this strategic plan.
Is it possible to have Chris Aston come in and talk about what's happening in development and what the opportunities are from his perspective for what type of retail is, coming along and all that sort of thing, so we can be realistic about the types of goals that we have?
Absolutely.
And focused, realistic and focused?
Well, I guess I'm going to give a sales pitch to that because, One Washington Place is going to bring retail development and retail revenues to our downtown. I mean, for what their change is, for that little bit of retail that doesn't fit well in the building to begin with on Wilson Street, that development, people will come. If you build it, they will come, and I believe that. And
I do too, I agree. I guess I was wondering, what are the trends in retail? I mean, now clothing consignment stores are a big thing in downtowns, or, different farmers markets or local produce stores, things like that. So I'm just wondering if Chris sees any trends and what we can kind of expect.
And at our next committee of the whole meeting is when the department heads are going to be giving their annual report. And I can ask Chris to work that into his annual report, just to give kind of an overview of the landscape for that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
David?
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
No Post-it notes?
We're going to save the Post-it notes, so you can just leave the Post-it notes and the markers there. I'll collect them and hand them out next time.
Okay. All right, let's move on to item number 10, which is project status.
That's me again.
Yep.
This week on Thursday, Shodine will be coming in for the design review meeting on 1 Washington Place. Also on Thursday, March 1st, Public Works will be holding a meeting from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. in council chambers, and that's to discuss the upcoming construction and its impacts on neighborhoods that are associated with the Ward 1 and Area 3 storm sewer separation construction project. And Ward 1 will start first at 6:30 p.m. and then Area 3 will follow at 7:30. And the purpose there is to allow the residents in that area an opportunity to know what to expect with regard to the construction, an opportunity to answer any questions that they might have.
Excuse me, that's Thursday night, correct?
Yes, Thursday
here.
night. In council chambers.
How's the word got out to those residents?
Chris has been publicizing it on, Chris, you put that on Facebook, right? And then also on our website?
Wait, is that something we should throw on the fire station signs?
That's a good idea. Can you work with Randy Dykey to put that on the fire station signs? Great. And Gary, I don't know if anything went out via mail with that or if it was just on the website and social media.
I don't remember. I'll follow up and find out. I'll send a message out to council. I thought we were mailing out.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get anything.
I didn't get anything either.
Well, I think it's more targeted mailing. We didn't do all Ward 1. I think we did Ward 1 along like east.
If you're street, it's going to be effective.
We were on the suppression list.
On the suppression list.
Well, the project is specifically along east. So I think those are the people who physically have a hard time.
All they do is
And then also, Chris LaFleur was named Firefighter of the Year for the Batavia Fire Department. And for those of you who don't know Chris, he's one of the firefighters who is responsible for spearheading the effort to create an on-site physical fitness program led by one of our accomplished area personal trainers, Chris Browning. And the program has nearly 100% participation by all shifts of the fire department. And it's been so successful that it has attracted the attention of the Chicago Fire Department. And also Chris LaFleur serves as a member of our fire pension board as well. So congratulations to Chris. It's well-deserved.
How does that get, I'm just curious how that gets, does those fellow firemen
Yes.
vote on that? Is that how that gets done?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yes.
Okay, that's it?
Yep, that's it. Unless anybody has any
Anybody have any
questions.
questions on project status? Item 11, others. Does anybody have an other? Item 12, adjournment.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion by O'Brien, second by Salvati. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourned. 10 o'clock.